How are you doing?
Good, I'm well.
So I have some questions about first, what do you do? What's your work?
So my sole purpose here right now would be majority of rentals.
Okay. So you invest your apartment or like your real estate for invest.
So as a real estate agent, we have clients, either property management companies or private landlords, where they utilize our services to help rent their property.
Okay.
So what we do is we advertise property online through various sources of, either Zillow or different types of advertisement to generate individuals looking for work. So we're a mediator or a liaison between the landlord and the individual who's looking for housing.
Okay. So when you rent an apartment, that's it. They take over. I mean,
Exactly.
The management company take over.
Correct. So once we do, so when we basically provide all the paperwork up front, we do all leases, everything up until when they move in. So we hand out the keys and the welcome packet when they move in. At that point, the relationship between the landlord and what we'd call our client or the tenant would start.
Oh, okay, that's good. So, as students just move to Boston or like this Alliston area, so you work in Alliston area or on Boston or?
So Boston in general. So obviously we're staged here in Alston. So a majority of the work, I'd say about almost half our work is in Alston, Brighton, Brookline.
What's the majority of rentals who rent mostly from you students or like families or offices?
So either young professionals, but students would definitely take the majority, I'd say.
Okay.
But that is, I'd say if there was a percentage, I'd say students would probably about 30 to 40% of all, and then young professionals would have a heavy percentage as well.
So what's the advice you give to some like a new student come to Boston, want to rent apartment?
Do your research in terms of calling or getting in touch with an agent, going on Craigslist or Zillow, and following up with and basically, screening out an agent, making sure that they're being upfront. A majority of our purpose as a real estate agent is to be educational as well, in terms of what, like, the biggest hesitation I get that we get mainly from students is they're not educated.
Okay.
So
Do you mean like they find some problems? They rent one apartment and they find some problems, so then they move to another apartment.
So it's more so gaining or understanding what the cost of living is.
What they should understand and what should they know before they rent?
So before they rent is understanding, majority of all rentals are 1 year.
Okay.
Most of it, especially for students in this area, September 1st is the date to move in.
Contract.
Yeah, so the contract, the date, the biggest question that we get from students is, can we move in early? Most of everything is September 1st.
Okay.
So one of the questions we get is, I'm looking to move in August 22nd, 23rd. You're very, very, very unlikely that's going to happen. It's a September 1st, and
Why?
that's because everything is on a cycle. So most contracts, if not all contracts, are from September 1st to August 31st.
That means some other people still living in the
Correct.
property.
So that's another thing too, is another question we get is, it's a cleaning situation. So when you're moving to Boston as a whole, you have to understand that the current tenant's last date of move, like when they move out, is August 31st. So when they move out, it's a move-in, move-out base. So apartments are cleaned, and some do have a August 29th move out where they can get in ahead of time and clean. But for most of the time, what they do is they clean the day of September 1st while the moving is going on.
Okay. So while I'm in Boston, I see people changing from place to place. They work in Boston, for example, but they live in Cambridge. Then they move to another place because they say even like quieter place or closer to their work. So for the students, It's different.
Mm-hmm.
So as you said, they cannot change from unless they finish the 1 year contract. So what the location they should rent, what the best location for them?
That's all subjective to what they're looking for.
Okay.
So if proximity is most important to them, then as close to the college as possible. But if they're looking for, to be further out, so the closer to school, the price point could be higher, closer to school. But if they want to live outside the city and have more space or more renovation for about the same price, they may want to look outside the city.
Okay.
So it's all subjective to most of the biggest example, or when we work with students, their biggest, the biggest, what they're looking for the most is proximity. So they want to be close to school more than anything else. In terms of when they rank of what's important to them, proximity is definitely
This is the important because they're
Yeah.
not living forever in the properties.
Yeah.
And so the most important is to be close to the school so they don't
Absolutely,
waste
absolutely.
time.
But again, it's subjective. So there are some students that don't mind traveling because for various reasons of why they may want to not be so close.
For some advantages, right?
Correct. So for example, Boston in general is not a very dog-friendly city. So if someone has a dog or is coming in, that's more important to them to bring their dog than to be that close to school. They may go outside.
Yes,
So.
and
Or
sometimes,
parking. Parking's another thing. So.
Oh yeah, the
Yeah, so
parking,
parking
someone driving.
so parking, if a student is coming with a car, parking is extremely expensive, especially as you get closer to certain schools.
What do you see with the students came with the car first? They staying with the car, they get advantage from the car, or you advise them to sell their cars and come rent?
I would,
close?
if I was to advise, I would say don't bring your car.
Okay.
There's no reason
That's
to.
good advice.
Unless they want to go outside the city, and if they need to, but I would personally advise don't bring your. If you don't need to, I wouldn't bring your car.
Come without the car,
Yeah.
then
Mhm.
try.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah, because then you have to get rid of your car. So let's move to offices and like family, or some people work in Boston or like Allston area.
Again, you're dealing with subjective. Typically, younger professionals, they could, for the examples that I've come across, they could be anywhere. Some younger professionals do tend to stay away from, heavy college areas.
What do you think is best for them, to live away, like from the college, a little bit far from the city?
That's up to them. So again, I'm here to advise and to educate in regards to each individual is different and each case is different. So what I would do is when I'm working with a client, I would get with them on the phone and I would ask them, okay, what's most important to you? Do you want to be here? Do you and kind of go from there. In terms of it wouldn't be my job to tell them what to do.
Because maybe your advice is not working with them.
Yeah, so in terms of like if they were saying that I'm looking for more yard space or I'm looking for this.
Unless they ask you.
Yeah, so if I would ask them like what's most important to you? Is it location?
That's
Is
good.
it space? Is it renovation? These are things that I would ask them, and based on their answers, I would then advise what location would probably work best for them.
So now let's move to the investors side.
Mm-hmm.
So of course, like the building owners are investors, like maybe companies or like individual. So what's the difficulties for the investor in this area with the rental?
So it really, and again, a majority of my education or my experience is on the rental side.
Okay.
But my limited knowledge on the investor side is the price comparison approach. So it's
But that's good for them if the price high.
yeah, but it's a supply and it really comes down to supply and demand. Or
Oh, okay.
you know, if there are a lot of investors in Boston looking for the same property, the price is going to go up
Yes.
on what the property is, and then they do, it's called the rent roll. So in how they would figure out is they would see the price of the property, they would see how much they would get per apartment, and then they'd obviously factor in things like miscellaneous, like renovations and different things, and then they would give them about $1 per year as well.
So what's the difficulties for the investors, or like they invest here for buildings? Like what should they know about investing in this area?
It's competitive. It's extremely competitive.
Okay, and of course they need like management company
Well,
because
yep.
like, they need to, all the time. That's why I heard from students, they always moving and they make mess in the apartment. So you need to fix and you need to take care. Or when someone call from the students, you have to be ready.
Absolutely. So I mean, it's you when you're taking on property, and if you're taking on a lot of properties, as an individual, you only can do so much.
Yes.
So at that point, we would definitely advise about hiring either a property manager or building. You know, it depends on how big they want to get. Where there are management companies where where they have a whole office dedicated to the maintenance and the well-being of the property itself. So yes. So but if there are private landlords that like to have their hands more involved or hands-on, but like I said, again, you're going to need either yourself or you're going to have to hire a property manager to do the maintenance and or call out what you need to do, I guess. And then you obviously need accounts payable and receivable, and there's a whole, it gets pretty integral, yeah.
And I know because in the city, so you don't have long-term contracts, like 1 year, and usually people moving, but the price will be a little bit higher, right? So is it worth it to invest in Boston area with this like high rental, with this difficulties, like as people moving out, moving in all the time?
Yeah, in short, yes. I mean, you'd have to really. My advice would be to either, as an investor, get with a real estate agent who is seeing the trends and is able to educate you throughout the trends, and that's on the seller side. Why, working with a real estate agent, they can do all that work and advice for you, in terms of. It's property by property basis.
Okay, so even in the same area, you mean even in Alliston, you find like properties are different from each other. So some investment is good, some investment is not that good.
Correct. So even if you're taking a blanketed Alston, overall, it's going to have a price point for a 3-bedroom home or a condominium. It all depends on like renovations and when it was built, and there's different variables as to dictate the price of the property.
So people renting the apartment or the properties,
Mm-hmm.
are they looking for something like special in the apartment, or anything can be rented in this area?
It all depends. There are some apartments that are, like for example, if you have a basement level or garden level apartment that's unrenovated and the upkeep is not well,
Okay.
that's going to be a lot cheaper than a high rise, same 1 bedroom, same square footage, where it has, an elevator and there's, concierge and there's amenities. It's each one is different. Upkeep is huge as well.
How about the parking? So a lot of apartments offer not parking for the.
You're more likely not being offered parking with. It's either going to be parking for rent. They're going to rent out the spot, specifically here in Alston, or you're going to be on street parking. You're going to either need a resident sticker, or you're going to park in 2-hour parking.
How what's the percentage of the rental will increase if the apartment or the property has a parking garage? or like parking
Included?
space? Yeah, included.
Most likely, and because owners are either educated through their real estate agent, or they know the area themselves. The price of the parking spot is going to be incorporated in the rent, or they're going to separate. So
Oh.
that's, so in terms of, on average in Alston, in this area, you're looking between about 150 to 200,000 a month for a parking spot. So either they will charge for the parking spot separately, or they'll typically incorporate that into the price of the rent if they include it with the rent.
So I think it's the last part now with the people flipping the buildings here. If I have like 14 apartment building, how long will it take me to get them rent all of them?
If you let's say if you come in and you purchase a property in the area,
Yes.
and on an average basis, let's say if Wall Apartment is ready to be rented, everything is good to go,
Yeah.
the price point is accurate, and you're on the correct cycle, meaning if every apartment is getting ready for September 1st,
Yes.
and you advertise it early enough, they should all rent.
Okay, so September 1st is the key here.
Absolutely.
So-
That's everything.
If you are like investing or flipping, has to get ready when?
So if it now again, are we talking about studio, 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom? So again, if you're working with 4 bedroom, 5 bedroom, and 6 bedrooms,
Yes.
you want to get it advertised in January, February of that year.
Okay.
Because they're a lot more difficult to rent than a studio or a 1 bedroom.
Oh, so here are like two rentals, like individual and like someone renting one bedroom, someone rent the whole thing.
Mhm.
So what's the difference between those?
So it depends on the apartment. So let's say if it's a 5 bedroom apartment, you need to find 5 people together trying to rent the apartment.
Yes.
Versus a 1 bedroom is just someone just renting a 1 bedroom apartment.
I have like, for example, 5.
So
Then
you have-
I have to get the individual or rent it to one of them and get him pay everything and he charge the other people, or how it works?
No, so everyone has to qualify.
Okay.
So if you have 5, each one has to fill out an application. Everyone, would have to either income qualify or work with a co-signer, or everyone would go on a lease.
Okay.
So
But like if someone moved out of the 5.
So that has to do with either you as a landlord, either you're going to if you allow subletting or omitting. So the difference between subletting and omitting is subletting means a individual can move out and have somebody else move in their name, but the person who moved out is still responsible. If you allow omitting, from my understanding, is you can move out and you put the responsibility on the next person that you're going to move in. And from my understanding, and again, I know this loosely, the landlord has the right to allow that or not.
Okay, so that's difficulty in this area, because in other areas you rent it to one person, even if the person has a family, so only one will, or like 2 will be in charge, and their kids will be like living with them. And if one of the kids move out, they don't have to pay less, they have to pay the full price.
Well, because yes, a lease is locked in. So if the price, when you sign a lease, that for that contract, that's what you're paying,
So
regardless of who moves out or who moves in.
okay, so anyone want to invest here, he should come to you.
Yeah,
First.
I could. Yes, I mean, obviously, I could be of service. That's what we're here for, is to be educational and provide a service for somebody who may not be educated or, needs that.
So like students or someone want to rent or someone want to buy and invest, both of them can come to you for questions. They don't want to, they just not ready yet, but like
Correct.
they want to get educated. So they should come to you. It's like no problem. You answer them everything.
Correct. So that's the purpose of our profession is, again, a majority of what we do is to provide the education. And again, we also go out and we show the apartment, and it's up to them if they want to proceed. And then we provide we basically provide them with all the steps up until when they move in.
Most of the students like live in other states, then they move here. So they can they call you before, or they come before the time and talk to you? You show them some apartments, then when
Correct.
they come, they rent it.
Yes, so there are scenarios if the landlord permits. It's called sight unseen,
Okay.
where if somebody is unable to come here, they'll either have somebody see the apartment on their behalf, or we will go out and take a video of the apartment, or do a FaceTime or a Skype.
Okay.
And then we can provide the video to them if they are interested. Everything can be done electronically, including applications, a deposit for the apartment, leases, that can all be done electronically. So theoretically, if permitted by the landlord, they don't even have to come here. They can basically come here on September 1st and we can hand them the keys.
How important is contacting you before they come, or like how easy they make it to them when they contact you? Like, is it like, I think it's like easier for them to contact you, or like get know the area before they rent?
Well, we would encourage them they would provide. So we would encourage them to conduct research on the area prior to coming. So again, as a real estate agent, I guess in layman's terms, we're essentially glorified customer service. I mean, that's what we do.
Okay, where they can contact you?
So how they would get in touch with
Yes.
myself or through any office is through when they Google. Essentially everything is through the internet nowadays. Yeah. They're going to Google Boston Apartments, or they're going to create their own search where my office or my ad will come up, and then they'll find my telephone number or my email.
Yeah, do you have like some like website, like your personal website, so they see you, they want to come to you right away? What's your contact?
So Leopold McMaster's Realty
Okay.
is that's where my specific contact is, and then my email is steve@lmcrealtyboston.com, or you can contact me directly at 617-903-7767. That's my personal information. So I'm in Allston, Massachusetts. We provide services all over the city, but specifically a majority of the work that we have most exposure to is in the Allston, Brighton, Brookline, Fenway area. And then we also Beacon Hill as well. But again, as an agent, I do want to also say that a lot of times we work with other offices, so we have exposure to, most agents have exposure to a majority of listings because it's a shared network. So that's something as well.
Okay, so when they come to you, you can show them everywhere, anywhere.
Yeah.
No problem.
So no agent has access to every single listing, but for the most part,
most of them.
like, there are exclusives. Our office, we have exclusives with certain property management companies, as well as private landlords that not every office has. But
no problem to shop around.
Yeah, so I mean, but that's where, if we're doing our job correctly, you shouldn't have to work with multiple agents. If I'm doing my job correctly and you give me a price point of what you're looking for, we should be able to provide a service to you through the thousands and thousands of listings that we have. So.
Yeah, you could find like any solution for them.
Absolutely.
All right. Thank you very much.
All right, you're welcome.
Thank you.
All
I
right.
appreciate it.
Thank
you
you.
for your
No
time.
worries.